Hello and welcome to any Helldivers joining us on the heels of a brand new Warbond drop, the Force of Law Warbond, focused on lightning, arcing, and riot control. Now, getting into it just right off the bat, if you wanted to buy everything, including everything that's in the superstore, you will need 1,810 super credits to cover the map. However, if you just wanted to get the pistol, in addition to that, the Warrant pistol costs an extra 300, so if you have 1,300 credits, you'll be fine buying the Warbond and the new pistol, leaving the armor for later. Mind though, it will rotate out in a little bit. However, getting into the main Warbond itself, like I mentioned, 1,000 super credits to get in like usual, and on the front page, just listing what we got from top to bottom, we have the new AR, the Pacifier, an emote, the Signal Hold, which seems to be a string of tactical emotes, the Corrections Officer medium armor with the new ballistic padding armor passive, another calling card, a cape to match the calling card, which is a pretty clean one. All the capes I've seen in this are very clean. A usual super credit drop, the helmet to go with the Corrections Officer set, as well as a Hell Pod skin for the True Blue. A nice, I forget if the word is metallic, but it's a very shiny, good-looking shade of blue. Then, unfortunately, I've already bought something, so 125 more medals after the first page. On Fresh, you do get the Stun Pods booster, which is self-explanatory. You do release a stunning blast on drop of any of your Hell Pods. Then there is the also De-Escalator grenade launcher, which seems to function very similar to real life's own Milcore grenade launcher. I'll get into more on that in a little bit. The Jackboot light armor for ballistic padding, as well as its associate helmet. There is, of course, the Pelican skin, which I wish the Pelicans and the other vehicle skins, I wish they had red and blue flashy. I don't see them on here. I haven't deployed them yet in the field. I just really wish they do. Then we have another of a very clean cape. I'll actually give a preview of this one because otherwise it's just very nice, sleek, symmetrical. Super credits, a calling card, a shush emote, and that is everything on page 2. And then 390, I think I'm mathing that right, 300 medals later, once you get to the final page, we have the True Blue FRV skin, not Hellpod skin, which, like I mentioned, I like that blue. But at the same time, I think the Truth Enforcer's black and red just looks better on some of the vehicles. Although, prospectively looking at it, I will have to try it on the exosuit because it honestly looks way better because there's a lot more gold about it than there is on other things. Things to look out for in the future, maybe. Then within our gear, we have, of course, the guard dog K-9, which is supposed to be the arc thrower. Pay no mind to the preview video because that is the standard Liberator guard dog. But aside from that, arc thrower on a guard dog. It's self-explanatory there. Then we also have the Urchin, which I literally think thermite, but not lethal, which we'll have to see how that performs in the field. Another emote for Group Up, a super credit drop, as well as the title of the Extrajudicial. And with that, that is everything in the Force of Law Warbond, and touching back on the Superstore, we of course have the Grand Juror armor, which is the heavy version of the ballistic padding, which if you've never seen Judge Dredd, I recommend you do because that is definitely the inspiration for this specific armor set. And we also have another badge of armor cape, which another case of that's a good looking cape. And then lastly, a calling card to match the cape. And like I mentioned, the Warrant pistol is also in the Superstore if you're looking for it. Now to go over the gear in detail. Starting with the Pacifier, it is in a unique state because it is the lowest damage of any AR, even lower than the previous lowest of the Liberator Concussive at 65 damage a shot. But it is also the third highest rate of fire, coming in behind the Liberator Carbine and the Stall AR. But then in terms of customization, it has some pretty decent options. Sadly, no mags. I'll just get that off of your chest. But starting off with its basic details, it is medium armor penetrating, and it is stunning, which means it might be better than the Pummeler ever was. The only real leg up it has being one-handed. So, directional shield, ballistic shield, other things that you can do one-handed. But getting into its pure details, I think they kind of use that as a basis between the Stall or the STA-52 and the way it performs. Because if you actually look at the Defender and Pummeler, they are effectively the same SMG. One just has slightly more damage, one has less rate of fire and less recoil. But at the same time, they are otherwise the same, one having the leg up of the stun rounds. This one seems to be a very similar case, which the medium armor penetrating might make it way better than the pummeler, just because in the case of fighting automatons and other enemies like that, of course, this won't be able to stun the biggest things on the field, but this will stun 80% of what you can fight in Helldivers, which keeping them locked down and just giving your team moments to breathe, especially when you're dealing with a horde and just need, like I said, just need a moment to breathe, this could be incredibly good. Plus, don't be concerned about, fire humane stun rounds. It is very, very lethal. Then in terms of customization, we have the basic bog standard reflex sight. We also have the basic reflex sight Mark II, the holographic, as well as the 2x red dot that you would get off of the adjudicator, as well as the 4x combat scope you would get off of the pacifier, liberator, penetrator. That's what I was thinking. Then in terms of grips, we have the usual, the usual suspects of vertical and angled foregrips, which honestly, this thing seems like it's a bit more high rate of fire version, so I might suggest the vertical recoil only because this grouping looks very clean considering how much it's kicked up from our original. This already seems like it handles pretty good, so I don't think you'll need extra ergonomics, although I know there's some fiends that will just take all the ergonomics anyways. And in terms of muzzle attachments, it comes standard with a muzzle brake, which it is seemingly pretty good, but then of course the flash hider for slightly more vertical, less horizontal, and the compensator for way more vertical, way less horizontal recoil. I'll leave it up to you and your tastes of how you like your recoil, because you can keep it kicking straight or you can keep it kicking lower but wider. It is entirely your options from there. Then with the Warrant pistol, I shall cover that right here. Basically just, it's weird because it's medium armor penetrating, but it's second lowest damage. There seems to be a theme. It can hit anything, but it also is less hitting than anything. So it is a tracking rocket pistol. It is very similar to the Wasp in the way it works, which I might honestly recommend not learning how to use this on the guided. I would learn how this flies naturally, because unfortunately with guided, it hits targets wherever the guided tracking takes it. It doesn't take it where you would need it, per se. So let's say you had a impaler that had its neck stuck in the ground. The tracker, let's just say it actually went after its body, so it ended up hitting the armored parts, not the fleshy bits. You would probably want to learn how to use this unguided before possibly relying on tracking every now and again. But like I mentioned, it is medium armor penetrating, it is one-handed and also guided, but its performance is a little bit weird because in a clip I saw, this had to mag dump an overseer in order to kill it. Meanwhile, the Verdict can, I believe, 2-shot, Senator 1-shot, other things like the Talon 1 to 2-shot, there's many things here that can more effectively kill, and this isn't even a stunner. It is basically just a rocket pistol. So I might recommend learning this without the tracking, but then once you don't have the tracking, it's basically just a lobbed pistol. At that point, the only thing keeping it is one-handed and medium pen, but that is also a fair number of other sidearms. So we'll have to wait and see if the Warrant actually has its day in the sun. In perspective, thinking on Destiny, when they introduced their version of rocket pistols, they hit way harder, but also had way less ammo than everything else. I know the comparison between Destiny rocket pistols and a Helldiver rocket pistol is few and far between. That is just kind of something I thought of mid-edit, that maybe in the future, if it turns out this isn't exactly effective, reduce its total ammo, but also make it way harder hitting in comparison, possibly. Then, in terms of the Warbond and the rest of the gear, we have the De-Escalator, which it doesn't have a preview video, but we do have some of the details, which it is lacking a few of them right here. This is a round reload grenade launcher. Like I mentioned earlier, if you've ever seen the Milcore grenade launcher in any Call of Duty shooter, Battlefield, otherwise, or real-life service, this is pretty much a electric version of that to make your enemies ride the lightning. And now, in pure perspective, this might be playing out better than the basic grenade launcher. Now, the comparisons with the grenade launcher in this one, the grenade launcher is belt-fed, it can dump out more rounds quicker and possibly reload faster, but this one has a much wider reach when it comes to its shots, of course, because there is an initial explosion, and then there is the arcing electricity that goes out from there. And it actually does seem to be quite potent in terms of just general ad clear. Now, like I mentioned, this is a alternate flavored grenade launcher, so you won't be really taking out Impalers, Bile Titans, or Hulks, Factory Striders, and things like that. Well, maybe Hulks, because they have their weak spot. Regardless, Factory Striders, Harvesters, I don't see them working well. Where I might see this working really well on is either crowd control or keeping flesh mobs and chargers in line, because I'm not exactly sure how much it works against armor playing out. But then we also have, like I mentioned earlier, the stun pod booster, which this might be better for the person that has no idea what to bring. Usually I would bring the firebomb help pod. However, in practice, it was really not good at being close to friends. This one might be way better because even if you do stun them and knock them loose, you know, everything else will be knocked loose, so everything will be on equal ground. Then in terms of gear, the Urchin might be a hard sell, because in the end, the stun grenades were good for giving you a brief moment to breathe. The Urchin is going to be literally a thermite that just sticks to things and keeps them still. Now granted, this does have a radius, so anything else nearby would also affect it, but at the same time, it's hard to sell, because in this case, let's just say pure honesty, same thing, you use it like a thermite, you see a charger coming at you, you throw this Urchin on it to give you a moment to reload something AT. Now, at that point, it's just stuck there, so why not have a thermite and already throw it, stick it, and then just avoid it, and it'll be dead in a moment. You don't even need to use the AT on it. So it's rocky territory. Using something non-lethal in the slot of something that is lethal has always been a big choice for Helldivers. Speaking of which, of terms of lethal, there is also the guard dog. Now this is a guard dog with an arc thrower on it, which the arc thrower has very much already seen its uses against Helldivers by chaining lightning between. Now, in the end, the guard dog, the choice is based on what you want to shoot and how angry you want your teammates to be when it inevitably shoots them. Most of the other guard dogs are just, ow, that hurt, I have to heal that, damn you. This might be the most lethal of any of the guard dogs, because I've seen a few clips of it just one-popping anything nearby, including the Helldiver. So maybe run electric resistance armor when you're running it with this, and maybe run the full electric loadout, De-Escalator, Pacifier, and Tesla towers. At that point though, how much of a good teammate are you going to be when everything you're running could possibly fry all of your teammates? So we'll have to wait and see about this one in the field, see how it actually runs in the future. But then with that, there is of course the armor passive of ballistic padding. It's a very simple one. It's more broader damage resistance, but less potent, because you have 25% resistance to chest damage, 25% resistance to explosive damage, as well as preventing of bleeding from chest hemorrhages, or preventing of damage in case your chest bleeds. Now, in the end, that's a mix of like 3 different armors. I believe the resistance to chest damage comes inherently on the Democracy Protects armor, as well as the explosive damage being here and there on many different armors, but I believe that's a 50% resistance. And same thing with damage from bleeding to the chest. So this seems like just a mix of Democracy Protects as well as explosive resistance. It is very fitting for riot control, but in the end, it may not be better than either of the rest. We'll have to wait and see how it actually performs in the field. But with that, that is everything to do with the new Warbond. Now, of course, there is a superstore still. I forget if I mentioned it purely. This is honestly just me forgetting if I talked about it. So the Judge Dredd armor, of course, here, like I mentioned, 810 super credits to to claim everything else in the superstore. I am running out of words to say, so I'm just going to go ahead and end it here. My name is the Mad Scorpion. This has been Helldivers Force of Law Warbond, and I shall see you all in the electric battlefield.